The question on the table is, what if all our beliefs, or our faith, turns out to be empty, and maybe science can explain the things that we held beliefs over. We get to the end of our lives and we're deeply disillusioned and disappointed. Pascal's wager, you may have heard of it. The French mathematician and philosopher Blaise Pascal was deciding whether or not to be a believer. Now, I'm not advocating this, I'm just saying that he had an interesting approach to it. And he thought that, well, if I don't believe in God, what could possibly happen? I could maybe have more freedoms or license in my life to live the way that I please. And then I'll come to the end of my life and either no harm was done because I'll just return to dust as everybody does and there's no afterlife, or I could be judged against by God, which could be catastrophic. So on the one hand, there's that risk. Then he said, what if I practice the faith? At that time, the faith was Catholic Christianity. He said, well, on the downside, I could have my freedoms restricted. I might have to conform more to moral behaviour and social norms and so on, and perform acts of charity, go to church and all the other things that believers do. When I get to the end of my life, then either it'll be the case that there is no afterlife, there is no final reckoning, no justice, and I've lived my life maybe with some unnecessary restrictions, but no great harm or loss has been incurred. In fact, I've probably fitted into my society pretty well and have probably done some good moral actions that can benefit other people, and perhaps it's been worth the sacrifice even though there's no ultimate reward. On the other hand, if there is a reckoning and a final reward, a heaven, then the benefits could be infinite. The upside is limitless. So when Pascal weighed up these two alternatives, just as a wager, like which is worth the risk, he decided that it's better to be a believer than an unbeliever, because the downside of the unbeliever is potentially horrible, but the upside of the believer is potentially infinite. And in the middle, it's like, yeah, I could live with it either way. So that's Pascal's wager. I don't know if that's relevant to you. As I say, I'm not advocating it, but other people who struggle with faith and science may not realize that true faith leads understanding. You don't just check out your reason at the door. That when you truly put your faith in providence, a benevolent creator that guides the universe, that creator comes to your aid and enables your understanding to grasp some of the mysteries of the way in which he works. Faith leading understanding, not leaving it behind, but leading it. And so your understanding actually catches up. If your faith is not like a locomotive leading the engine of your understanding and all your understandings, then maybe it's not authentic faith. That's one point. The other point is that there is no intrinsic contradiction between the truths of faith and the truths of science. They should be harmonized. The book of nature should not contradict, as it were, the book of scripture. If they seem to in your mind, then either your interpretation of the book of nature or the book of scripture, or both, has gone awry. So what has been revealed by God to humanity, it is in accord with what nature has for us, and holds up for us to learn from. And there is a way of harmonizing it, because there is only one truth. Anything that's true must belong to that system of thought that is the one truth. So that's another reason one shouldn't despair, and one shouldn't despair of finding a synthesis.